Hi, One Best PR Videos. I'm Peter Loshak, and I'm going to take a look right now at the Atlantic 10 from an ATS perspective as of February 8th. In the Atlantic 10, unlike what we've seen in some of the major conferences this year, the top teams have been the best bets in conference play, while the bottom tier teams have also been generally bad bets recently, and I do think we're going to see that pattern roughly continue in the conference in February. Dayton is the only ranked team right now in the Atlantic 10, and they've been coming on strong ATS-wise recently. They've covered 5 out of their last 6 games, and their margins of cover have been increasing. Going forward, though, they're mostly matched up against other teams who are also looking promising ATS. So while I wouldn't want to bet against Dayton in any of those, I'm also not as yet circling any games to look to bet on them with. The best upcoming game to my eye as of now for Dayton might be at home against Duquesne on February 9th. Duquesne's been good ATS recently, but they look like the kind of team that can't hang with the top teams in the conference, and I think that game is more likely than not to see a cover from Dayton. And then VCU, St. Joe's, and St. Bonaventure have all been good bets overall on the year as well as recently, and I'm definitely going to be looking to bet on them in some of their upcoming games against some of the more vulnerable teams in the Atlantic 10. For VCU, I'm looking at taking them on the road at UMASS on February 11th and at home against Richmond on February 19th. And with St. Joe's, I'm looking at their road game at UMass on the 24th and also probably at home against LaSalle on the 13th, as long as that line doesn't get released too high. And then with St. Bonaventure, I'm definitely going to be looking at their road game at Fordham on the 10th and their road game at LaSalle on the 17th. Then Duquesne and Davidson are 2 teams that have interesting ATS profiles that might be good bets in spots in upcoming weeks. Again, Duquesne's looking like a team that struggles against the top tier of the Atlantic 10, but is also a good bet against the lower ranks, especially at home. And I'm looking at Duquesne's upcoming home games against UMass on the 14th and against Richmond on the 27th as games where they might have value even as a decent-sized home favorite. And Davidson's been a bad bet overall on the year. They're 6-13-1 against the spread overall, and they've been particularly bad at home at 2-7-1 ATS. But they've evened things out a bit in conference play. They're 4-4-1 against the spread over their last 9, and they had some nice results against some of the better Atlantic 10 teams in that run. I'm actually going to be looking to bet on Davidson at home against LaSalle on the 10th and against Richmond on the 16th, and then again on the road at Fordham on the 27th. I think they'll probably cover at least 2 of those 3 games. And then St. Louis is another team with an overall bad ATS record on the year that has had some good ATS results recently, and I'll be looking for them to have possible value at home against Richmond on the 10th and against Fordham at home on the 20th. And that's my look at the Atlantic 10 as of February 8th.